Chinese characters, or Hanzi, are seen as a distinctly Chinese invention. But with around 100,000 characters recorded today, which you can type on any modern keyboard, are all of them truly Chinese? To answer that question, let's rewind. Chinese characters are one of only 4 written systems believed to have developed independently, alongside cuneiform, hieroglyphs, and the Mayan script. The first confirmed Chinese writing is the oracle bone script, used around 1200 BCE for divination during the Shang dynasty. But by then, the script was already sophisticated and strikingly close to what it would become just a few centuries later, which suggests its development started much earlier. Long before Chinese existed, Neolithic cultures along the Yellow and Yangtze rivers were carving symbols on pottery, bones, and jade, some as early as 6600 BCE. That's notably the case of the Jiahu markings, etched on tortoise shells, which appeared alongside millet farming and animal domestication. The Dawenkou culture left behind symbols linked to rituals and early urban life. Even though their number was limited, some symbols appear to present clear connections with Chinese characters as we know them today. Of course, these weren't full writing systems capable of representing spoken language yet, but they show how visual communication evolved with agriculture, labor, and social hierarchy. By the Shang dynasty, writing had become a full-fledged state tool, used for divination, war, commerce, and royal ceremonies. But what exactly are Chinese characters? Hanzi aren't in alphabet. They're logograms. Instead of letters representing sounds, each character carries meaning. Originally, characters started as pictograms, literal drawings of what they were meant to represent. Over time, as society and communication needs grew more complex, pictograms evolved into ideograms, as pictures alone couldn't capture abstract ideas. They were stylized and standardized, while other purely ideographic forms were created. But even that wasn't enough to fully represent spoken communication. It is only when ancient scribes started using characters not for their meaning, but for their sound, that the process was complete. The incorporation of this principle turned the Chinese script into a hybrid system of pictographic, ideographic, and phonetic elements. In East Asia, China was the first state-level society to emerge and reach what anthropologists call civilization. So it only makes sense that it also became the region's cultural exporter. Over time, the Chinese script spread to its neighbors, first to Korea, then to Vietnam, and finally to Japan. This being said, how does the system actually work? Each character represents a word, or part of a word, but Hanzi aren't just a random jumble of lines or endless inventions of new drawings. They're built from a highly structured system. At the core are 214 basic components called radicals. These radicals combine like Lego pieces to form more complex ones. And when they combine, they follow strict rules, from the order you draw the strokes to how they change shape when they become part of bigger characters. Now, from a purely mathematical point of view, these 214 radicals could theoretically be assembled in endless ways to produce millions of different possible combinations. But over 3,000 years later, we have ended up with only 100,000 characters. Why? Well, if theoretically you could produce millions of combinations, in reality, not all combinations work. And this is because in each character, all radicals play a specific role. Some give clues to meaning, others hint at pronunciation, while others just help differentiate similar-looking characters. You'll often see the meaning part on the left and the sound on the right, but there are plenty of variations. In a nutshell, just because you can mix radicals doesn't mean you'll get a character that's pronounceable, meaningful, or usable. Some characters are also just too complex already to build on further, though there are exceptions. So the Chinese script evolved organically through actual use, not just mathematical possibility. But at the same time, these potential endless possibilities are precisely the reason why not all characters are Chinese. As characters spread across East Asia, other cultures didn't just borrow them, they transformed them. Nowhere is that more evident than in Japan, which created thousands of original characters called kokuji, or national characters. Among the 2,000-ish kokuji, most involve the radical fish. No wonder for an island country. Others reflect Japanese landscapes, religious ideas, or typically Japanese farming practices. A good example is none other than sakaki. This character is made from these two radicals. Put together, you get secret tree. But why invent a new character? After all, the sakaki tree also grows in other parts of Asia, including China. Well, the key is cultural meaning. In Japan, this evergreen tree is sacred in Shinto, the country's native religion. It is used in rituals, placed in shrines, and even tied to the sun goddess Amaterasu in mythology. So it needed a written symbol that went beyond just biology. Meanwhile, in China, the same tree doesn't carry any spiritual meaning, so no new character was needed there. Now, naturally, with so many possible combinations, there were cases where Japan invented a character only to later discover that the same form already existed in China with a different meaning and pronunciation. These overlaps are called kokuji with national readings, or kunyomi-only characters. Today, scholars debate exactly how many kokuji exist, or among them, which are truly Japanese coined. But whether there were originally 1,000 of them or 2,500, the reality is that most of them fell out of use after World War II, even though many iconic ones remain essential in daily life. Among the characters that remain, some have actually traveled all the way back to China. This was notably the case during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when Japan was leading the modernization of scientific and political vocabulary in East Asia. But characters were only imported when China had no equivalent, filling gaps in Chinese terminology. But Japan wasn't the only one to contribute. Before the widespread use of its alphabet, Korea had also adopted Chinese characters, and continuously used them up until the mid-20th century. And like Japan, Korea crafted its own unique characters, called kukcha, to express ideas and sounds specific to Korean culture and language. A prime example is tap, meaning paddy field. This kukcha aimed at showing the importance of wet rice agriculture in Korean culture and economy, a character you can still see in place names like Tapkok. This character is one of the very few ones that traveled abroad, and it has survived in Taiwan, where it appears to be also used in personal names. Others, like kal, were simply phonetic characters representing Korean syllables. However, Korea's character invention was short-lived, with only about 20 kukta being recognized. As for Vietnam, it also created a few original combinations, estimated in the hundreds, for specific needs, particularly local concepts, vocabulary, and phonetics. Actually, I have found the Vietnamese ones to be the most intriguing. Take this character, for instance. It means human. It is the first time I have seen the radical for person appear on the right-hand side, as it usually appears in its modified form on the left, or this one, meaning sky. But I cannot help but wonder why invent new combinations for words like man or sky when basic radicals already existed for these concepts that don't appear to be specifically cultural. I couldn't find an answer. If you know, please share in the comments. Based on the very few examples that I shared, you can see that China's neighbors didn't always stick to the placement rules for the semantic or phonetic elements, which indicates each nation made the script their own, at least for a while. With millions of possible combinations, this isn't surprising. So what do you think? Are Hanzi truly Chinese? Let me know in the comments.